The new opponent rotations are out for Big Ten women's volleyball. Now, reminder, with the 18-team conference, teams play 3 opponents twice and the rest just once. So let's take a look at the new rotations, starting with the top 6 in last year's standings. Penn State will play Maryland, Nebraska, and Ohio State twice. Nebraska faces Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State twice. Wisconsin up against Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota. Purdue meets Illinois, Indiana, and Minnesota home and away. Oregon plays the West Coast schools. No major changes there. Minnesota up against Purdue, Rutgers, and Wisconsin. So the most notable change, Wisconsin and Nebraska only play once. Meanwhile, USC Volleyball looks to build off a promising first season in the Big Ten Conference. The Trojans earned their 3rd straight NCAA tournament berth under head coach Brad Keller. USC advanced to the 2nd round as a 6th seed. Last month, the program announced the addition of libero Taylor Deckard for the spring season. She was a Max Preps and Under Armour All-American in high school. So here's a look at the next grouping of opponent rotations. For West Coast schools like the Trojans, not a whole lot changes as they'll face the other West Coast schools twice. For Illinois, they face Northwestern, in-state rivalry, Purdue and Wisconsin. Washington up against UCLA, USC, Oregon, as I mentioned. Indiana faces Maryland, Northwestern, and Purdue twice. Michigan with an in-state rivalry battle against Michigan State, Nebraska, Ohio State, the other teams they face twice. UCLA, another team that faces all of the West Coast schools 2 times. A new era is underway in East Lansing with Kristen Kelsey taking over as the program's next head coach. She returns to her alma mater after spending 2 seasons as associate head coach at Minnesota, helping the Gophers to their 10th straight NCAA tournament berth. She also was an assistant coach at Northwestern and Michigan State. She wore the green and white from 2010 to 2013 and is 7th in career assists in program history. Michigan State will face Iowa, Michigan, and Nebraska twice. The Huskers always a tough draw, of course. Ohio State up against Michigan, Penn State, and Rutgers twice. Maryland faces Indiana, Penn State, and Rutgers 2 times. Iowa draws Michigan State, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. Speaking of the Wildcats, they're up against Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa twice. And then finally, Rutgers faces Maryland, Minnesota, and Ohio State. Those new opponent rotations, the perfect excuse to talk more about Big Ten women's volleyball, and that is today's big interview. For more on that, we bring in Wisconsin head coach Kelly Sheffield. Coach, great to see you. Appreciate the time. How's Madison treating you?
It's going great. Listen to you read all those things off have me pretty fired up, and it's only February.
Very fired up, also a little bit out of breath, but I do want to start with that news that I just talked about. Your team only faces Nebraska once, which is one of the major changes in opponent rotations. Meanwhile, you go up against Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota twice. What's your initial reaction to that news?
You know, it's, we've gotten used to playing Nebraska twice every year. I think that, that's a matchup that not only both fan bases, but I think the volleyball fan base really looks forward to. So that'll be a little bit different. We're traditionally playing Minnesota twice, and we continue to do that. It's a tough deal of trying to, you've got 18 teams in our conference now, and trying to have it pretty balanced. And having teams from, where one of the most important things I think is when you're trying to compete for a Big Ten championship is how even can the schedules be, and I think they've done a pretty good job where they could of trying to make this as balanced as possible.
Those people do not get paid enough. I'll just say that. 18 teams, a lot of factors to bring in. Now, before we talk about your team some more, I do want to ask about some of the other major offseason news. Nebraska legend John Cook announced his retirement just about a month ago. 4 national titles with the Huskers, 32 years overall as a head coach. What sticks out to you about the legacy he leaves behind in the sport of volleyball?
He built a program that we're all chasing. I think, how he did it there and the fan base and the administrative support, they've set the standard for decades. There's no doubt about it that he belongs on that Mount Rushmore of Big Ten volleyball coaches.
Talking more about your team and looking ahead to the upcoming season, really exciting. One of the other major announcements in the offseason was the addition of All-American outside hitter Mimi Collier to your squad, transferring in from the University of Oregon. Just curious, what was the courting process like with Mimi? Did you have a previous relationship there? And then what's it been like getting her on campus?
No, never talked to her before in my life. She's played in twice. She's played here. She's seen what the environment was. We had an amazing Elite Eight match against Oregon a couple years ago. I think they got notified that on Friday morning that Matt Ulmer was taking the job at Kansas, and I think her and a bunch of her teammates immediately went in the portal. We talked to a few hours later after she got off of a plane, and she committed later on that day. And so then it was about trying to get her into school because they had already started school, and we were about ready to start school on that next Tuesday. So it was fast break, if you will. A lot of things had to happen, but she also knew that she had to make fast decisions because of just the timeline of when the other schools are going to be starting.
A lot of coaches say the transfer portal is like speed dating. That's how they would describe the process. Now, you do deal with the departure of two-time Big Ten Player of the Year and National Player of the Year, Sarah Franklin. You'd bring in a talent like Mimi Collier. You've got 5 other players joining your team this spring. What is it like, though, losing the caliber of talent of Sarah Franklin? And how do you try to utilize this time in the spring to prepare your squad for next season?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Sarah obviously is an aircraft carrier for us and did an awful lot for us. But we lost a lot of players. Devin Robinson, Anna Smrek, and Yulia Orzel, and Caroline Crawford. And we had a lot of different graduations, and so it's a new group. We're fired up to get to know them. We're kind of feeling each other out a little bit right now in practice, and but there's talent there. We're probably a little bit smaller than what we've been, potentially a little bit quicker, but they seem to get along real well. They seem to be really coachable and seem to love being in the gym. So just starting to get going here, and that's the beauty of the spring.
As you look to try to mesh some of those new personalities, how important is a returning upperclassman like a Carter Booth, who's coming off a really nice season?
Carter's critical. I mean, she's the only one that was on our team last spring. Everybody else is young and new, or that have transferred in. She's got big shoulders. She's got big dreams. There's no doubt seeing her the first couple of weeks here that she's ready to step in that leadership role and embraces that. And we're going to need her. We're going to need her to take that next step, and I think she's ready to.
Your program just announced your spring schedule. You will be playing 4 matches, a couple in Madison, a couple out in Hawaii. That's going to be a fun trip next month. If there's any extra seats on the plane, I am available. I can make the drive up to Madison, but just curious what you're most looking forward to about that trip.
Yeah, it's you're playing a great team in front of a great fan base. We'll get them for back-to-back matches. We'll play the first one in Honolulu, and the second one the next day. We'll fly over to Kauai and play those guys there. The Hawaii fans will show up for that, and you're going to play a team that's going to go hard and play hard, and we'll learn a lot about ourselves. And so it's a great opportunity, and we're certainly looking forward to it.
Since you brought up the fan base, we have witnessed an evolution in just the excitement surrounding the sport of volleyball in the last couple of years. It's been so much fun to watch. I'd be remiss not to ask you, what has it been like from a coach's position to see this type of growth in the sport?
It's exploding in every way imaginable. It's been like this at the grassroots for a little while. You go to some of these tournaments and you're seeing 100, 150, 200 volleyball courts, which is in a convention center, which is crazy to see. And then, you've seen the explosion of how often the college volleyball is on TV. Fans have been responding there. It seems like every week you're reading somewhere where there's a new attendance record. It's been exciting to watch.
You brought up the pro leagues. That's also continuing to expand. You've got the Pro Volleyball Federation, League One Volleyball, USA Volleyball just announced they're going to be launching a Major League Volleyball. What do those opportunities mean for your players, and how does that impact your job?
Well, it's pretty cool having a pro team here in Madison, and then we'll have 5 teams playing here this weekend. So the fan base being able to see these elite players, our players being able to watch them compete, and I know some of them have gone over and watched them practice and train, and you know, the dream is right in front of your face. Almost all of these guys, they want to be playing at that next level, and you know, to be able to do it on your home soil and not have to go overseas is unbelievable. I think it stretches out some of these players' professional careers. They can make a really good living doing something they love. So it's been awesome. They're still trying to figure it out. Both leagues are still in their first or second year, but it's been exciting.
Real quickly before we let you go, what excites you most about the current group you have right now in Madison?
Their love of the game is very, very evident. I think this group wants to compete. They want to get after it. They're trying to learn each other. You know, they're wanting to do big things. And I think that's one of the reasons why you come to a school like Wisconsin, is to try to do big epic things. And it's been fun getting to know them. I'm really excited to start playing some of these spring matches. We've got 2 in the field house after our Hawaii trip against Marquette and Green Bay. Just looking forward to seeing what this group can do.
Coach Sheffield, we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Looking forward to watching your Badgers in the upcoming campaign.
Thanks for having me.